Hello guys, what is up? Cobra Axis and Allies here. Today I'm going to be going into a kind of quick-ish review of HBG's newest expansion, Colonials. Basically this expansion will add a ton of new troops for you to use for all nations. As you can see here, we've got pretty much all the powers represented here with colonial troops. So first off, I think we're just going to go into the actual rule set of these, and then we'll go into the individual kind of what each colonial unit does. So, first up, we've got the rule set. Now, basically, you're going to get 29 colonial units in this expansion set. And so, going into the background of these colonial units, Colonials represent military personnel raised from forces in the colonies. Some nations have colonial infantry listed on their national reference sheets, like the British Commonwealth, France, and Italy. This expansion set features specific units that will be built in specific locations on the map, as stated in the rules of Global War 36. Colonial infantry do not require a factory to be built or placed. Unless otherwise indicated, the land zone they are placed in must have the player's roundel in it, and must be possessed from the beginning of the turn. So these guys are pretty much just going to work like your normal colonial infantry. They'll just have some placement restrictions on them. And so the rules behind building the actual colonial units: colonial infantry can only be built in specific locations listed. Building these units does not require a factory, and each nation is subject to a limit of 2 colonial infantry per turn. Including the normal colonial infantry that you can build, such as for Britain and France. So if you build 1 colonial infantry, you'll only be able to build 1 of these expansion set infantry. So I think that is just about it for the actual placements. So I guess going into the actual the individual forces. So I'm going to go to the roundels now and show you basically what each of these units will do. Alright, so first up we have the Royal West African Frontier Force, and all of these first ones are going to be for Britain. So the Royal West African Frontier Force is basically can be built in Nigeria, and this unit starts the game in Nigeria. And so, as we stated before with building colonials, once these units are destroyed, you can build another one. Basically, this is a attack 2, defend 4, so it's pretty much just an infantry that you can be placing in Nigeria. Yeah. So next up, we've got the Arab Legion militia, and basically this guy attacks and defends at a 2, it moves 1 and costs 2, and so basically this guy is a militia, as you could see from the stats, but he is pretty much just he's a militia that can attack into territories, and he has a special ability that he is not subject to any desert rules of combat and movement, meaning that this guy isn't going to get a -1 or anything like that from attacking deserts, which even though he's got a low combat value, that is actually a pretty good unit, especially if you paired him with an artillery or something. So, alright, sorry I had to cut it out for a second there, but next up we have the British Solomon Island Protectorate Defense Force, and that guy is basically he starts the game in the Solomon Islands, so basically that is a decent addition, because the Solomon Islands are usually attacked by the Japanese because of their victory point importance, but this gives you just another guy to defend it with, and this guy's pretty much just a militia. Next up we have the King's African Rifles, which is this guy. He can be built in Tanzania territory, which is South Africa, or near South Africa, and basically this guy is a attack at 2, defend at 4, so he's pretty much just an infantry that you can place there, and he gets replaced with a partisan if his territory is conquered, and that's only if you're playing with the Partisans expansion. Next up is the Somaliland Camel Corps, and this unit becomes a mechanized infantry after one round of defending, and when that happens, the unit defends at a 4. So basically, this guy starts the game as a cavalry unit, or not starts the game, but you can build him in British Somaliland, and he will be a cavalry, but after one round of defending, he will become a mechanized infantry, and so basically you get a free mechanized infantry out of it. After that, we've got the Sudan Defense Force, and this guy is pretty much just he is a infantry, but he attacks at a 3, so it's a little better, and he's not subject to any desert rules of combat. So this guy's actually a pretty decent unit because he has a higher attack than an infantry and doesn't take any desert combat penalties. Next up, we've got the Rhodesian African Rifles. These guys can be built in Rhodesia. They are pretty much just an infantry unit, and they're not subject to any desert rules. So a lot of units that are not subject to desert rules for the British, which is a pretty big help for their North African campaigns. Next up, we've got the Hong Kong Defense Force, which is just a militia that can be built in Hong Kong, but it defends at a 3 against land attacks, and it defends at a 4 against amphibious assaults. So basically, this is a great unit to build in Hong Kong and try to take out some Japanese while you can before you get kicked out. After that, we've got the British Indian Army. And as many of you know, you can build, soldiers in India, and because of the territories there, and it technically counts as a colonial infantry there. But basically, the Indian Army are just pretty standard infantry. They attack at a 3, though, so they're a little better at attacking. And 2 of them may be built at any time on the map. So basically, you can have 2 of these guys activated at once, and they are just slightly better infantry that can be built in India. Next up, we've got the Royal Malay Regiment, which is a pretty standard infantry class unit it's a militia, so it attacks at a 2, defends at a 3. But basically, this unit becomes an infantry after 1 or more rounds of defending. And after that, you just use infantry rules, so it can move and attack and everything like that. And then lastly, we've got for the British at least, we've got the Fiji Infantry Regiment. And basically, this guy is an infantry, and he does not suffer double casualties during amphibious assaults. So this is actually one of the better units of this, because of the fact that you're basically getting a Marine that only costs 2 and can be built in Fiji. And because that's near Australia, and Australia goes with the Commonwealth turn, Britain could build this unit in Fiji and then have Australia keep picking them up. And of course, you can only have 1 at a time, but it kind of makes Fiji an infantry or a marine deployment center, which is kind of cool. So yeah, this was all of the British units that you'll be able to mobilize, and now we're going to probably go to the Italians. Alright, so now we're going to do all the Italian, or not the Italian, but just the Axis colonial infantry that they'll have in this expansion set. So first up, we're starting with Italy. First up, we have the Gruppo Maltini, which is a medium armor colonial unit. So basically, this is a standard medium armor. So attack at 6, defend at 5. So basically, it is not subject to desert rules of movement and combat. So this thing won't be retreating or anything, or getting a -1 in attack or anything. and can be built in Cyrenaica for 5 IPCs. So this is a really great unit for Italy because they won't have to ship over another armor, and to get a medium armor that doesn't have any desert combat penalties is a really great asset for them in the North African theater. Next up we have the Colonial Cavalry. Italy has a lot of Colonial Cavalry units, so we've got the this one specifically is the Gruppo Bandel Armata, and this is a cavalry that can be built in Eritrea, and it is a standard cavalry, and it doesn't suffer any kind of mountain penalties, so it's kind of like a mountain cavalry. After that, we've got the another colonial cavalry. This is the Royal Corps of the Libyan Colonial Troops, and this unit may be built in either Tripolitania or Eritrea, and it is just a cavalry unit that attacks at a 3 instead of a 2, so another decent unit. And a really good thing about this is the fact that if you have the choice of building this colonial cavalry in Eritrea along with this colonial cavalry, which also gets placed in Eritrea. So these two units would definitely be good in terms of Italy strengthening its Horn of African armies before the war starts. Next up is one of my favorites. This is the Libyan paratroopers. I've got a cool unit painted up for these guys. And basically the Libyan paratroopers you place in Tripolitania. They are standard paratroopers, so attack at a 2, and they actually defend at a 4, so they defend a little bit better. Move 1, cost 3. But this is the really cool thing about this, is that you pay 3 IPCs, you get this unit in Tripolitania plus an air transport. So that's a I think, how much is an air transport? 10. So that's pretty much a $13 value for $3 or 3 IPCs, which is a really great investment for Italy. Next up, we have the German Free Arab Legion, and this is pretty much just an infantry that gets placed or can be placed in Axis-controlled Tunisia. So basically, you would probably have to get Tunisia to fall to the Free French, and then the Axis would have to invade Tunisia to be able to build this unit. Because if it was Vichy, then this unit would not be able to be built. Then we've got the Japanese. So first we have got the Gando Special Force Colonial Mountain Infantry. And this unit, as I look for it on the rules, okay, so this unit can be built in Korea at a cost of 3 IPCs. It defends, or attacks at a 3, defends at a 4, and it has no river penalty when attacking in mountain zones or across a mountain border. So this is pretty much just a mountain infantry that also doesn't get any river penalties. Next up we have the Indian National Army, which is basically a movement of Indians that are trying to fight against the British that the Japanese can build. And so these would be built in Burma for 2 IPCs. They are standard infantry, so they attack at 2, defend at 4, and they're not subject to jungle rules, so no penalties or anything for them. And then lastly, for the Axis and for the Japanese, we got the Inner Mongolian Army, which is a cavalry unit. This can be built in Kurluan. It attacks at a 3, so it's a little bit better than a normal cavalry. Costs 2. And it's not subject to mountain rules, so kind of like that last Italian one, it's like a mountain cavalry. Overall, a pretty nice unit. So next up, we're going to go into the final Allied and Comintern colonial units. Right. So lastly, we've got the French, American, and Russian colonial units. The French are the last to have a lot of colonial units at their disposal. So first, we've got the Spahai colonial cavalry, and this guy is basically can be built in Western Algeria, attacks at a 3, defends at a 4, so it's a pretty good cavalry unit, and can be built for free after Paris surrenders. So basically, if Western Australia goes to the Free French, you can pretty much just place this as a free cavalry unit for them. After that, we've got the another Colonial Cavalry, and this guy attacks at a 3, defends at a 3, not subject to desert rules of or movement, so another nice desert cavalry piece. Next up we've got the Cochin China Division, which is for French Indochina. Basically this can be built in Annam Tonkin. It represents just an infantry unit, attack at 2, defend at 4, and it's not subject to any jungle rules. So a nice asset to help France defend against the Japanese. Next up we've got the Senegalese Tricolores, which is just another colonial infantry, but they attack at a 3 instead of a 2. They can be built in French Guinea, and they basically, if they are defeated in a territory, they can be replaced with a partisan. So another nice unit. Lastly, for the French, we've just got another Colonial Cavalry attacking at a 3, and this unit becomes a mechanized infantry 1 round after defending. So kind of like that last British unit, the Sudan Cavalry. Nearing the end here, we've got the American, the single American colonial available to them, which is the Philippine Commonwealth Army, and basically this is just a militia that defends at a 4, and can be replaced with a partisan after being defeated. So just something to help out the Americans defend the Philippines. And lastly, we have for the single unit for the USSR, which is the Kuban Cossacks, which is a colonial cavalry that can be built in North Caucasia. It attacks at a 3, defends at a 2, and can be replaced with a partisan if defeated. But yeah, overall, that was all the colonial units that you'll be seeing in this expansion. And I definitely suggest that you guys check this expansion set out. Because another thing is, even if you don't want to buy the actual expansion set, you could just put ships under stuff. So basically, if you wanted this expansion set but didn't have the money for it, and it's only it's $20, so it's not too bad for all the roundels that you're getting. But basically, you know, like if you want it, you could do like the French. So say you want to build the Senegalese troopers. You basically could just put a blue chip underneath like a French soldier and call that a colonial infantry. So yeah, I definitely think that this is a nice expansion that adds a lot of cool individuality of units. You know, like when you see on the board, you're not just gonna have all the same generic infantry. Like I'm probably gonna be gluing a lot of these infantry to their roundels, so you can see there'll be a lot of variation when it comes to like kind of individuality, where like a unit will be its own kind of thing. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this quick look at the Colonials expansion, and I hope you guys definitely check it out and try it out in your Global 36 games. See you guys again. Cobra, out.